Thank you. So the next question is, have you ever faced any discrimination because of your hijab? And are there any misconceptions that you've had about the hijab in the past? So, Ajarat.
Oh, okay, there we go. So have I ever faced any discrimination? So I think the answer, has anyone ever tried to pull off my hijab on my head in the middle of the streets of, I don't know, LA or wherever I live? The answer is no. But has there been discrimination? Maybe. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So I think, particularly for me, right, I wear multiple identities, meaning you're a woman, you're Black, right? You're a Muslim, you wear the hijab in a country where, this is a post 9/11 world. This is a country where, Black people are still trying to fight for their rights, if you may, right? I mean, George Floyd, XYZ. So there are multiple layers of discrimination that can come. So even though I haven't necessarily had anything outrageous happen to me, but sometimes, people discriminate against you, they don't want to engage with you, or they talk to you, or they engage with you in an inferior manner, right? Because of that, like, they have this nasty look on their face. They're like, oh, you're the one who's XYZ when you go and address yourself, or you're speaking at a conference. And, of course, when the bio comes, people expect somebody different to have your credentials. And then when you show up, they're like, oh, really? You're Ajarat? Yeah, I am. This is me. So, you have those moments, right? But nothing that has been, I think, utterly, crazy in my face. I mean, I mentioned the CBP officer who had me take off my headscarf when I landed in New York City, right, when I first came. I mean, that's in this day and age, that is discrimination, right? But I didn't know better at the time. I was young, I was a teenager. So what I always think about is, you're the one who sees the hijab. I mean, right now I'm looking at myself in the mirror, so I see that I'm wearing a headscarf. But otherwise, I don't see it. I feel it. Do you see what I'm saying? You're the one who sees what I'm wearing, what I look at. So I'm not necessarily faced. And I always have a positive attitude, I think, towards life, something that I think has served me well. I don't go about thinking the world hates me because I'm Black, because I'm a woman, because I wear the headscarf, even though I know that that is true for many people, right? They think differently of you, but I don't engage the world that way. So even if you come at me, I'll first think, maybe you're having a bad day. I said something to to deserve whatever bad manners that whatever, how you interact with me, maybe it's a fault of mine in the way that I also, I guess, presented myself to you, right? So I don't always just immediately think you are acting in a manner because of my hijab. If you come and tell me, I don't like you and I don't like your hijab, I mean, that's something very different. I think I've been in one conference, just to mention an example, where was a post 9/11, which is the world we're living in now. And somebody said, I was in a conference talking about building a mosque in Ground Zero. And somebody said, but you guys bombed the World Trade Center. Why would you build a mosque, close to the World Trade Center in Ground Zero in New York? And I was like, boy, I didn't do that, though. Right? Like, I'm not that person who bombed the World Trade Center. Right? So things like that. But I mean, I think that is more of a comment that was meted out to Muslims in general, not necessarily towards Ajarat, because obviously I didn't, again, bomb the World Trade Center. So things like that, when you go to conferences and audiences where you speak or you engage society on behalf of Muslim women, African women, XYZ, whatever identities that I, capture with, that I hold, that's perfectly fine. But I haven't had anyone come at me, and I don't go around the world, with a very negative thing, or I'm not defensive. My default is not defensive. Wallahu alam. I'll stop for a moment.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
I love that. Oh, that's so exciting to hear, honestly, because it's very similar for me. So to be honest, like, the same way I would say to people, I don't think I ever experienced racism in the UK. I lived there for 6 years. I honestly, like, I didn't, because I didn't, sometimes people talk about you channeling some sort of energy towards yourself, right? Because you're looking for it. It comes to you. To be honest, and those that have been discriminated against, this is not to say that, you ask that upon yourself. But for me, maybe it's my bold personality, like I've spoken about earlier. But to be honest, just like Ajarat, I don't recall having any significant discriminatory incidents with regard to my hijab. Just like her, I remember I had a manager at work. Once I knocked her door and she opened it, she said, oh, I didn't expect to see somebody so dark. That was her. That was her. way of trying to say, oh, it wasn't, I didn't want it to be you, or, but just like Ajarat, I thought, okay, maybe it's because I'm really dark skinned, right? Which of course was a lie. Maybe it's because, and just like Ajarat as well, we exist in so many different intersections, right? We're women, we're Black, where, so many times you find yourself being the minority of the minority of the minority. So you can decide to focus on, I'm going to cry because there's gender discrimination against men. You will have a really tough to take that approach. So just like I said, few people might have made a few unwanted or unsolicitatory type remarks, but never moved me, right? Just like I thought, maybe it's me, maybe I just okay, I remember, one specific incident where I went for, it wasn't an incident, to be honest, just I went for a job interview and I wore, my turban hijab. I thought to myself, would this affect the outcome? Because this was in my earlier stages of donning it. But the commentary that I received later was actually the converse. It said, I was really colorful and therefore unforgettable, right? So it was something that made me stand out. So if you're looking for a way to distinguish yourself, like people always has the hijab on, in the room. So I have experienced some discrimination being Muslim, but nothing specifically targeted at my hijab, or at least my version of it. A few misconceptions, right? Talk about misconceptions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, a few misconceptions, even for myself. I think, yeah. So the first one was that I thought that I would be unbearably hot.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
A big lie. You would think that you would be hot, physically hot. You're like, that's what Christians say. Like, these are the little things, or non-Muslims or non-hijabis, say. They say, it's too wrong when we hot. It's a huge misconception, because the truth is, I say to people, if you are so hot, why are you still wearing clothes, right? You're wearing something, or you must be hot too in your own clothes, right? That another misconception from myself was that people would judge me and I would not be able to integrate into mainstream society. Big lie, right? Big lie. Or big misconception, let me call it that. That I had to be a perfect Muslim, right, before doing it or any version of it. I think Ajarat spoke to that as well. You do not have to be a perfect Muslim. You don't have to have a perfect understanding for it. That I could not approach it also in a stepwise manner, right? That I could not say, okay, I don't want to go, to full throttle just yet. Where can I start? Just put your foot in the door, right? That there was something big. Another misconception for me was that it could not, exist in a professional setting or in a sophisticated setting. Another big lie, right? So look at Ajarat. I remember, in the UK, she would come to me. She was way, she's older than I am, but she was way more professional than I was, at a much younger age. I think it even gives you some sort of sense of responsibility. You feel responsible because you are also carrying the image of the deen, right? In that way, so you feel responsible for behaving a certain way, for doing things in a certain way. So some of those misconceptions, I think, hopefully, inshallah, we'll have more discussion around it. Last one for me is that you cannot wear the hijab and still be stylish. I think, alhamdulillah, for the world that we live in today, like the YouTube videos and access to all the markets in the world. If you wanted to start from Bangladesh today, you could get it, right? So I think all of those have been debunked, right? Because honestly, everything has opened up, inshallah, for the Muslimah that is looking to put the hijab on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you both for that. I think I really love that we have two different perspectives. Ajarat had a much easier journey, and yours, it's very important to have these perspectives and share them. So thank you once again for sharing.